There are a number of ways to solve systems of equations algebraically. We've already talked about using substitution, and in this video we're going to talk about a method called elimination. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at both equations and we're going to try to eliminate one of the variables, either x or y, so that once again we have equations with one variable, which we can solve. So if we look at the first example, you see we have 3x plus 7y equals 68, and we have 3x minus y equals 4. The first thing I'm going to do is, I know that my answer is going to be an ordered pair, so I have to the right x and y, which I'm going to fill in as I find each of the variable values. Now, if you'll notice, the first thing that we're going to look for is we're going to look in both equations, do either of the variables, x or y, have the same coefficient in both equations? Okay, and when I say the same coefficient, I'm talking about the absolute value. So you can see that in the first example, we have 3x in the first equation and 3x in the second equation. I would consider that the same coefficient even if one of them was a negative, because we're looking for the same absolute value of the coefficient. What that's going to allow me to do is eliminate, in this case, the x, because what I'm going to do is, how can I get rid of the 3x? Well, I can subtract this 3x. Now, in algebra, there are certain rules that we have to follow. If I'm going to subtract the 3x, I have to subtract this whole equation. So I'm going to subtract the second from the first, just the like terms, okay? So when you have a subtraction sign before parentheses, it means you're going to change the sign of everything. It means take the opposite of whatever comes after. So I'm going to say, okay, 3x, and then minus 3x, that's going to be 0. So this is going to be eliminated. Now, let's look. We have 7y, and remember the coefficient of this is 1y, okay? So this is not going to be 7 minus 1, because let's remember that we have this negative sign, okay? So it's going to be 7y minus a negative 1y, which is plus 1y, so that's going to give us 8y. And 8y is going to give us what? Well, remember the subtraction sign again, so we're dealing with a positive 4 in the second equation, so that would be 68 minus 4, which would be 64. So we have 8y equals 64. Okay, what are we going to do to get y? We have to divide by 8, and this gives us 1, and we have y equals 64 divided by 8, which is 8. So I'm going to fill in my 8. And now I'm going to go back to substituting, okay? So let's look at the first equation. I have 3x plus 7y equals 68. I know that my y value is 8, so I'm going to do 3x plus 7 times 8 has to equal 68. Okay, let's go through this. Plus 56 equals 68. We have to subtract 56 from both sides. Okay, and this is going to cancel out, and we end up with 3x equals 12. Okay, let's divide both sides by 3. and we get x equals 4. So I'm going to put 4 as my x. And now to check, I'm going to go back to the second equation, okay? So I'm going to do 3x minus y should equal 4. Now let's look at my ordered pair. So my x is 4, so 3 times 4 minus my y is 8 should equal 4. 12 minus 8 equals 4, and 4 does equal 4. So we are correct. And again, the wonderful thing about algebra is that you know you're correct as long as you check. And checking in algebra more than in any other thing that we've talked about so far is super important. Okay, let's do one more. All right, let's try this one. And you'll notice when we look, we see that the x's have different coefficients, but look at the y. We have a positive y and a negative y. And so because if I add a positive and a negative, I'm going to cancel them out. Instead of subtracting this whole equation like we did in the first one where we had to change the signs, this is going to be easy because we're just going to add everything, okay? So let's see what happens. We have, first of all, let's make sure that we know our ordered pair is going to be our answer, okay? And so we're going to add 5x plus 3x is going to give us 8x, and this positive y, negative y cancels out. That makes that super easy, right? And 8x should equal 48 plus 16. So what is that? That's going to be 8 plus 6 is 14. Oh, 64. And here we have the same number as the first equation. That's the first set of equations. Okay, so we're going to do something similar. We're going to divide by 8. And we get x is going to equal 64 divided by 8, which is 8. Okay, so x is 8. What do we do now? Now we're going to substitute our x value. So let's see what we have. We have 5x plus y equals 48. And so that would be 5x. Sorry about that. We know what x is. So 5 times 8 plus y equals 48. So 5 eighths are 40 plus y equals 48. Subtract 40 from both sides. And we're going to get y also equals 8. Oh, that's interesting. So now, since we figured out the y value from the first equation, let's check our answer in the second equation. So 3x minus y should equal 16. So let's do 3 times 8 minus 8, because x and y are both 8, equals 16. 3 eighths are 24, minus 8 equals 16, and 24 minus 8 is 16, and 16 equals 16, and there we go. And so again, the important thing when we do elimination, the first step, there are going to be more complicated systems of equations, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look to see if either of the variables has coefficients that are either the same number or opposites. So we're looking for variables with the same absolute value of the coefficient. And then we're going to either add or subtract one equation from the other.